Okay, I was real kind of calm and elated, Nick Pascal. I was actually elated a while ago because I've been, let me see, I guess I'm kind of like an unreliable witness to my own life, according to fucking everybody on the face of the planet. But what does it say? It says, I think I've been released from the Mental Health Act. And that happened in about 2 seconds because I saw a new doctor today, and his name is Neil Jameson. And so he is a consultant, well, he was a consultant psychiatrist, but he's taken over as the Hill Morton inpatient psychiatrist. So he's taken over from both Nick and Nathan. And I'll quip for the 3rd time today because I think it's quite a good quip, especially if I'm a dad, which I'm not. When people say that they've been sent to outpatient, I say, I hope outpatient is a euphemism for hell. Yeah, and so then the other very silly thing is that when I just clarified, well, I sought to clarify with Neil about this court hearing in the hospital for the for the mental health section, whatever the fuck, get me in for good. I said, is that going ahead? And he was like, what? No. No. So I don't know what the hell is, but I think that if Nick Pascoe wants to get me, he's going to have to come to my house and shiv me with one of those plastic forks that they've got. Because that's the only way you're going to get me, mate. So what happened is I thought, how doesn't a mental patient dress? And I think this is how a mental patient doesn't dress. And then I brought a couple of mates, and I'm not going to name names because I'm not, I do protect the privacy of people who don't fucking violate all of my rights, and they can come and say hello in the comments if they want to. I am going to use a thumbnail with a picture. It's a picture of me and them on either side of me, and this is my celebration sort of photo, like yay. But I'm going to cut them out of the picture or protect the faces or something like that. And if they want to come and say we're happy to be in that thumbnail, then they can do that. But so what happened is I did gather a couple of friends, and for one reason and another, these friends are not at full disposal to support me. So when I say I've got no support, what I mean is I have no support. It doesn't mean that I don't have any sympathisers at all, but it does mean that I don't have any support, because support is actually quite a big job, and it's quite time consuming as well. So what happened is I went in for my 1:30 appointment with Neil Jameson, Dr. Jameson, psychiatrist, and I had heard from staff, although fuck knows what they say, whether that's true or not, and also from reviews, which also my mother Wendy had also seen herself, that he appears to be a reasonable and decent person who sees, well, I shouldn't say reasonable and sees reason. That's basically what I mean. A reasonable person, whatever people think reasonable might mean, it actually just means that they see reason. So this guy, we sat down, and one of my support people came in a little bit late, and by the time she had come in, all I just said to her was, mate, I've been released. Because there seemed like a little bit of a to-do to start with, and I had kind of primed my first support person whom I came with in her car, just kind of like, it's okay if you don't understand the situation, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. I do encourage you to ask questions if you feel like it, because I don't understand the situation and I think it's going to be to my advantage. So I've heard from some graduates whose alma mater happens to be, Helmwarden Hospital, that it actually just really pays to have people around you who are, one, showing an interest in your well-being, and two, showing concern and quite some confusion about what the hell is happening to these people, because it doesn't make any bloody sense. So I was quite interested in getting an actual diagnosis, and I'm quite interested in understanding why I was being forcibly medicated with something without a solid diagnosis. And anyway, so there was a little to do, which was, just those introductions. And there were, on the Helmwarden side, there was the psychiatrist Neil Jameson. There was Lisa, or Melissa. She just says call her Lisa because it's too complicated to explain, but it sounds like Melissa, and I always mispronounce it Marlisa, so she says just call me Lisa, who's the eternal house surgeon, who's drunk from the fountain of youth, I'm sure, and is never ever going to probably be a registrar, because I don't think that's her shtick. And then there's another, I don't know, some young woman, I don't know who that was, and I do not believe it was the intern. Yeah, I don't think so. And then there was a nurse called Maurice, I think. And I think that's all on that side. And then it was me, and then I had a couple of buddies, which was really nice for me. And it's probably a bit of overkill, actually, because, but I don't know, because we don't know. It could have been a bit of the observer's paradox, where some of the, it could have been ready to sort of hinge on a, what Dr. Jameson ended up saying to me. Maybe he didn't come in intending to say it. Maybe he thought he'd see how it went. But anyway, one of the people who was with me was someone whose family I've known for quite a long time, that goes across a couple of generations. So that was sort of quite helpful, and Neil sort of did kind of zoom in on that and showed a bit of interest in that. But what he did say, and to my mother Wendy, this is why I'm making this video. I'm not ready. I didn't really feel quite ready to make this video, but I think this deserves this, because I've raked my mum over the coals, and I've said things to her that severely malign her character and her motives. And I believe that from Nick Pascoe wrote and said in court and in written information and things he said to me in person in interviews, and just casually as I ran into him on the ward asking him why about the forcible injections. Nick has lied. Nick has lied a lot about what people have said about me, and he's lied about what my mother said about me, because I've seen what my mother sent to him, and that differs in materially and quite significant and pivotally significant ways to what he claimed in his submission to the court to get me under whatever, I don't even know what section it is, but not 11 or 13, but for the big guns. And we did not have that hearing. That hearing was adjourned, but the judge discussed that with my barrister Raoul, because Raoul and I turned up to challenge section 13 under section 16, and then Nick came in with guns blazing, wanting to get me in for the big, like, let's treat her any way that I want to, as a fairly long-term inpatient, and that was a hijack, and he basically just lied. In the papers he submitted to court, he lied, and I realise that police prosecution is probably not going to ever bother with something like this, And if I was ever going to take anywhere, it'd be probably litigation privately, because I can't really get much traction from human rights. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I'm trying to, like, fucking hell, the abuse that is happening to people because psychiatrists are just fucking butthurt. Nick stood there in court and he was sputtering because the judge, that particular judge, and we weren't there for a hearing, it was just because we were there to talk about the conversion of one hearing to another under a different part of the act that they were trying to get me under. She just sort of, she wasn't on my side, but she was just sort of had her head in her hands and she was just saying, Nick, what are you, like, Caitlin's saying all this stuff, and I just want to say something on your side. Like, do you have I really would need to see a report, please. And Nick was just sputtering, and he actually sputtered out something. He said she told a bank that she was suicidal, which is a lie, and I don't think Nick is stupid. What I had told the agency that I, or the organisation or business that I told I was intended to die was Kiwi Wealth, which is a funds manager who is also my KiwiSaver provider, you know, the interface, and that's not my fucking bank, mate. They're not a bank. They're called Kiwi Wealth, but they're not Kiwi. They're not Kiwi Bank. My bank is Kiwi Bank. It's just a fucking lie. And she was making out that I was just randomly, like, sending out kind of like suicide notes. Every suicide fucking crazy note I sent out was instrumental. And this one particular one was that, look, I'm going to die and I want to I want to get my money released. And then the second time I followed up with, well, I'd rather not die. Can I please get all my money so I can hire a lawyer? Because I can't get a free lawyer who will do this. Can I get a lawyer? Can I get enough money? I only got 50k in there, so I'm not going to do a lot, but at least I can sort of pay a bit of a down payment, and I can go somewhere like a no win, no fee, which I already know that I probably have a really good chance of doing. I can at least get someone to do what I can't do, which is the clerking, because I can do like a stumbling kind of clerking in a kind of lay person's way, as I'm very organised, and I kind of can, you know, read along a little bit and understand how to do like a timeline and a summary and an executive summary and, you know, whatever else they might need. But I can't do that because I'm broken. Like, I'm broken and I need someone else to do that stuff. In fact, half of what I'd want from a lawyer is the clerking. And so to pay someone like Shine, which I've previously approached, like, they're like, you know, looks like I probably got something that they would take in on a no win, no fee basis. But they're not going to look at my mountain of fucking evidence for free. So it's going to cost about $4,000 just for them to look at. And then you ask people like stupid fucking uncles, they're like, oh, $4,000, that's ridiculous. And it's like, one of them said, what's a special counsel anyway? Oh my God, mate, can you just like shut the fuck up and either give me money or bugger off? Because I don't need people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about advising me, or failing to advise me, as the case may be. And I think half of my attitude problem is not actually autism, it's just the fucking fact that I've been dealing with these fucking idiots. These arrogant fucking idiots for 13 months. Now, Nick stood up there in court and said to the judge, sputtering, she's got delusions of grandeur. No, I don't. You do. And everyone who gives me really shitty advice without understanding what I've fucking done has delusions of grandeur. I have an accurate perception of understanding what the fuck my situation is and getting really fucking fed up with people who keep trying to give me advice knowing nothing. They think after being told something secondhand for 5 seconds that they can say, have you tried community law? As I said to this district inspector tonight, who I don't really want to go into it, but I've certainly fired. I went into it with her. Neil said, well, we do want to see. We don't want you to go home and sort of kill yourself. It'd be nice if we could get some legal help, because he recognised that the problems I'm going through are real problems, not on my mind. And so what has been misdiagnosed, not even diagnosed, just let's just fucking seriously, let's just be like my uncle from Rangiora who doesn't know anything about anything. Let's just do what he does and call it a mood disorder. But a mood disorder is in your mood. It's not an emotional reaction. So reacting really aggressively to people who are trying to harm you, that's not a sign of a mood disorder. Because a mood disorder isn't a reaction. It's it's an it's of itself. That's why it's a mood disorder and why it's a serious illness, and why you need a lot of medication to sort of treat it. Because the sad thing about it, as I've said elsewhere, is it's not the sufferer's fault and it's no one else's fault, and it's really awful because they come in like moods tend to not be like the weather. Moods tend to be quite well under our control. But with a mood disorder, they're not under our control, and that's why they're a disorder. So the fact that after 13 years of almost no months of almost no support, yeah, I do act really aggressively, or what appears to be aggressively, when people start giving me fucking shit about things that I know more about and which I can't get any fucking help for. So the first thing that Neil did say to me was, after this gathering, he just said, so his first day on the job was on the Monday, and then I found out yesterday, after asking a million times, because Hill Morton has an anti-comms team, that my appointment with him today was at 1:30. Was today in at 1:30, and I went in there, and basically after the introductions were done, he just says, well, I just want to say up front that I've been talking to your mum. And I was about to say, that's illegal. You can't talk to anyone without, you can't talk to family unless you've actually discussed it with the patient first. You don't have to have patient permission, but you do have to discuss it with the patient and make up your mind that it's the right thing to do. And it's not a matter of opinion, it's about being justified, reasonably justified. And reasonably doesn't mean fairly, kind of, it means reasonably, it means under reason. And then he said, well, I've been talking to her, and she said that the chaos in her home is very unusual for Caitlin. This is showing the stress that she's under. She came into Christchurch traumatised from unlawfully losing her home, among other things, and the trauma started up in Wellington. And the way that Caitlin's behaving now is entirely consistent with someone who's been through the ringer, and not a mood disorder at all. And as Wendy said herself to me, because I rang Wendy when I came out of the hearing pretty quickly, when I was just sort of, not the hearing, sorry, the assessment, pretty quickly, but after I was just sort of waiting in the vestibule kind of area for the for my official release there. I thought I should ring Wendy, but she should be the first. She was the second person I told her, but the first person I rang. Well, the only person I rang, really. And I just said thank you, and look, I'm sorry for blaming you for things that weren't your fault, and actually I can see that what you've written to Nick and what Nick said that you wrote, not the same thing. And I think that those have been the lies ever since Hill Morton started sniffing around me, and that was back in about September or October. And I'm certainly not absolving everybody of everything, because it's really, really not cool to bring a mental hospital on someone who actually just needs criminal defence. Or not criminal defence, I should say, defence from criminals. But I know that Nick made a decision to get me sectioned properly and treated long-term with drugs that I don't need. And I think he did that because he didn't like the force with which I resisted his nonsense, and he had the power to put me down. That's what I think happened. I think that's what Nick's like. Nathan wasn't like that. Now Nathan, this is why I was very confused. Why is this hearing even going to go ahead? Because I kicked up such a stink about seeing Nick, to Nick and to everybody else, that eventually they go, maybe Caitlin doesn't really like Nick. And so they gave me to Nathan, and Nathan was much better and more reasonable, but he was a bit soft and seemed quite confused about when I said, what's up with the court hearing then? And Nathan was kind of like, and then he kind of covered up his confusion, and I suspect that what happened is, well, sorry, that was an interpretation, that was not an observation. I did not observe Nathan covering up his confusion. What I saw was him going, and then kind of like going a bit quiet and looking at Lisa. And I think and then he sort of recovered. And what I think happened is he was like, I don't think I want to look like I don't know what's going on here, because this is a bit weird and I don't want to look like I'm incompetent. But really, when I was passed from Nick was my, what are they called, like, I can't remember what they're called, but the responsible clinician, something like that, there's an official term. But then he stopped being that, and I was given to Nathan to be that. So then whatever Nick had set off either had to be revoked or carried through, but it had to be on Nathan's say-so, right? And so when I rang Raoul, my barrister, after I got out, and I'm like, no, sorry, he rang me. I texted him saying I'm out, and he's just like, yeah, so I guess this hearing. And I'm like, yeah, I think you should have been told ages ago. Like, I think this is like a lot of waste of time and money. Like, it looked like I was on a track out of there, and Nick is just like, he's just got this grudge, like, fucking gotta get this fucking bitch in, man. And yeah. So, yeah, I just wanted to make it really clear to my mother, Wendy, that I'm sorry, and that I haven't processed all of that enough to apologise properly, but this is not the only apology that I'll make, because I have to look through all of the stuff that's been said and written, and I think Nick's just a real lying fucking piece of shit, and I think it's criminal, and I want to take this quite far, I think, and I know MAPS is going to support me, because they want to show the pictures of the bruises, because the bruises that I received and being pinned down to take this injection, you shouldn't be bruised. That's why you have that many people to hold someone down. It's not because you need that many people to hold someone down. It's that you need that many people to hold them down without damaging them. It's all about the weight distribution over the surface area of their soft tissue, right? And not only that, I didn't receive any aftercare. No one said sorry. I don't believe there was any ever records kept of it, because you need to keep records and send the records off-site immediately if you do have to restrain a patient. Have to. No one had to, but they did. And I don't think any of those were kept. And so I want to make a big fucking stink about this, because I've got out. I don't know if I'm properly out. Who fucking knows? I've been warned by numerous people from numerous angles. It ain't over. And but what I want to do is just say to my mother, Wendy, thank you, and I'm sorry. You're not off the hook for everything, but I think you understand now that calling mental health services on a person whose mental health is suffering is the wrong thing to do, because mental health services don't support you through what you're going through. Mental health services want to diagnose you with a primary condition, but my condition was secondary. So my condition is PTSD and abuse trauma, and it is secondary to the abuse and trauma that I'm receiving. And I'm afraid Hill Morton pulling me out of my home all of a sudden when I was relaxing at home, having a bit of time to myself, feeling slightly cheerful with the cops, and then taking me to a hospital where my health and physical safety have been neglected and endangered, slut-shamed, framed for sexual misconduct that never happened, and then insulted and by a psychiatrist who shamed me, tried to heavily shame me for intending to throw my kidney away because it was a transplant, as if I haven't already fucking shamed myself for it. You not understand, that's not how you treat suicidal people. You don't shame them, because that's not about shame. It's a totally different, it's not an accountability problem. It's a desperation problem. And then physically injured to receive a medication that made me feel like a fucking crazy person, and then put onto a ward almost by myself with a fucking crazy woman who had recently been in prison, proper prison custodial sentence, not jail, and being thieved from with her and being abused by the people there as well. I'm sorry, but that's not... If you think that you're sending a loved one to receive some wraparound mental health care,